Okay, welcome everyone. So thank you for joining us. My name is Chrissy Caggiano. I'm an admissions counselor at the School of Professional Studies at Columbia University. We are super happy that you are here and joining us for this information session and to speak with our program director and a special guest. So we'll talk with our guest in the beginning. I'll introduce Teresa in a moment, and then we'll move in and speak with Zach, and then we'll talk about the program details, in general, and then we'll talk about the admissions process, and we'll have some Q&A sort of along the way. So please feel free to add what you wish to the chat in terms of questions. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our program director, Teresa Chan.
First, I'd like to welcome you. Thank you for joining us. We have a special guest this afternoon, Zach Eekhof, who is one of our students who is graduating this May from our second cohort. So Zach is an underwriter with Berkeley Surety. And prior to joining Berkeley, Zach earned his Bachelor of Science in Finance and Financial Management Services at Salve Regina University. He also spent a year studying abroad, business and language at East China Normal University. He started at Berkeley as a surety underwriting intern and has actually stayed the course since joining them. So welcome, Zach, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Teresa.
I invited Zach to join us this evening because he's one of our most creative students and that we've had in our program. And he really has excelled in identifying like operational shortcomings in our industry. And we've been working on them for the past 16 months. And, this I think is a testament to the program and how, Zach is really taking advantage of the program, in doing something that's really not part of his day-to-day tasks. So I think his experience tells a great story about how his approach to innovation may have changed now that he has learned more about the many functional silos that, we have within our work. And that's the topic today, talking about how the program has helped him to bridge those functional silos. So my first question to Zach is, obviously, why did you apply to this insurance management program and what did you expect to get out of it?
So one of the many reasons why I applied to the insurance management program was the summer course on data. I work in a very insurance in general is a very data heavy industry. And I come from a financial management background, so I really wanted to get a more holistic view on how insurance uses data. In addition to that, I wrote my entrance paper on smart contracts, and I wanted to create a centralized repository for the surety industry. That dream's still probably 15 years out, so we'll get to there eventually. And so I really just wanted to learn and get a more holistic view of the industry because I work in a small little segment called surety, and we're like the small little brothers of everyone else.
That's great. So, I guess you were looking for an opportunity to really expand, your understanding of the business and to further enhance like the innovation ideas that you had. So, as I mentioned, you've been building your expertise in surety since you started in the industry, and and then you had started as an intern and gone through some training before you really worked full time. So how much did you know about the different disciplines within your company, even as you started as an intern and spent a little bit of time there? And what did you want to get out of this program, as someone who is fairly new to the industry?
So prior to this program, I really I wouldn't even call myself close to an expert in surety. I think that takes 40 years. But during my training program, I had a rotational program, but it was primarily on underwriting, so commercial and contract surety. There was a very brief period of time where I worked with the CFO of my organization on the financials and a little bit with the chief counsel, but I still did not know nearly enough to qualify. I think it was like a single day, so I wouldn't qualify myself as having an understanding at all. And so what I wanted to do to learn new disciplines with this program was, we dealt with, like the financial management with Bob. He showed us what's required with, compliance and things of that nature. So that really opened me up and gave me a better understanding of what needs to happen within an organization. That's just like one example of many. And by doing this, I kind of realized that innovation's everywhere. And if we are able to like communicate and talk to the different disciplines within an organization, we may be able to help each other more than if we were to just fight the battle on our own.
Yeah, and so he mentioned Bob, and Bob is our lecturer for the role of finance in insurance. So, a lot of people think of finance and especially, those who study it, right? They think of finance in a particular way. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to kind of open the doors a little bit to show how finance has a really meaningful impact in terms of insurance products and the solutions that we provide to our insureds. So that was the mention of Bob's class, the finance class. And then, as Zach is saying, even when you innovate, you can't really work in a vacuum, right? Because every decision that you make or even the ideas that you have will have an impact on other people around you within the company. So being able to understand what the priorities are of, the other disciplines is really important, especially when you're taking on a role that has that, breadth of impact, as well as a role that's more managerial. And so you have to be a little bit more strategic. And in order to be able to do that, you really need to understand, or have a broader experience or broader knowledge. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is, to ask Zach to describe some of the silos that were made transparent to you, and maybe even some of the doors that it opened for you as a result of.
So just to break it down, you're asking me what were some of the silos and how did it become more apparent, and then how did this create a better opportunity for me?
Mhm.
So what I kind of realized is that I work in as an underwriter, right? And there's back office systems, and they're the ones that help me all throughout the way. They get things, the paperwork done for me. They get all the nitty gritty done. And then I'm out there, doing marketing, I'm underwriting risks, and I'm doing things of that nature. But sometimes what I would see is that there's a wall between what my responsibilities are and their responsibilities. And I really wanted to know what they're doing on that side of the fence, so then I could become a better underwriter. Like, am I causing them to have greater speed bumps because I'm not doing a portion of my job? Then that's just one of many examples, because we did that we learned more about operations with Marguerite. And so one of the things that this program kind of helped me out with was the fact that I was able to use it as like kind of a crutch to ask questions. So I could go to my executive leadership saying, "Hey, what's going on over here?" And then I would preface it with, "Oh, I'm doing this. This is a project for school," and it would they'd be more than happy to help me out, because it's a curiosity thing, but it's also we work in an industry that everyone is very friendly and they want to help you, and if you take interest in what they want, or in the industry, they're more than willing to help. And I kind of learned that all throughout the way. And then this program just kind of opened my eyes to that opportunity.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the most outstanding things. Like, you have been working there for, between your internship and currently over 3 years. And I think that, using the program as leverage to go and talk to people that you otherwise wouldn't talk to, and having a reason to, right? Because you learn something in class and you say, I can see some application in this, and I'd really like to talk to somebody about it. And so, as Zach mentioned, it's a lot easier to go to someone in a non-threatening way to say, "Listen, I'm just learning and I need to do this for class," or "This is something that was brought up and I'd really like your opinion about it." And I think it enables people to more freely, talk to you. So those are some of the doors that I wanted to get at in terms of having opened, because we cover such a breadth of content, in our program. So, and I know that, without saying whom, we also have contacts within a lot of the companies. So I happen to have somebody that I knew from my past life, who is now working at Berkeley. So I made the introduction to Zach, and hopefully that has opened doors that he, would otherwise not have been able to walk through. And I think that now, as a result of some of the projects that we're working on, and Zach's experience, he's able to actually go back to his management and say, "Listen, I have some great ideas. And, despite the fact that I'm no longer going to be in school, I'd really like to carry them on." So I think that's been something that Zach has handled really well. And he's really leveraged and taken advantage of. In many of the courses, we encourage our students to be innovative. And like I said, he's been one of the most prolific in terms of coming up with ideas that are out of his wheelhouse. So one reason I asked you to be in the info session is I also think that you went through a bit of a transition in the way you pursue the many innovative ideas that you have. So can you tell us a little bit about the journey and how you approached innovation early on, and then perhaps how it has changed now that you've completed the program?
Absolutely. So when I started the program, I'll be the first to admit I'm a relatively impatient person. I want things done yesterday. And this program kind of opened my eyes to the fact that, well, in corporate America, things aren't done yesterday. Things are done over a pretty good period of time because you have to do all these checks and balances and make sure that it's right for the organization. And so that was a tough pill for me to swallow. But I think that I'm a better person because of it. And so now when I deal with innovation, well, actually I have another point too, but I'm going to get to that. But now when I deal with innovation, I start thinking about, okay, so who do I need to talk to? What are the hurdles? Who will be the people who dislike this idea, and things of that nature. And then once you get to that, you kind of know how to navigate the water a little bit better in order to make it a more successful idea. And just to go with that though, not all ideas are good ideas. You can think they're a really good idea, but once you get to the nitty gritty and you go through this process, you kind of realize, okay, this potentially might not work. In a perfect world, this would be the ideal solution, but we don't live in an ideal world. We work in insurance, and we all know that. And so like, not everything's going to be a win, but like, even though it's not a win, you could take something that you learned from that and then move forward and apply it to a different area. And then something else I kind of took along with me with innovation is the fact that we are in an unprecedented time in insurance, where the buzzword in innovation is everywhere. And Teresa and I talk about this frequently: is what does innovation mean? So innovation is different than invention. You don't want to just innovate to innovate. You want to make sure that it makes sense for your bottom line. Are you going to integrate a software that costs a fortune, and that the people don't really necessarily use? You don't want to do that, and you have to take that into account. Everyone's, with insurtechs, everyone's trying to push their product, but does it make sense for your organization? And so I think that right now there's a lot of uncertainty in our industry. But I think that's also a good thing. We're finally seeing a change, and I think that has a lot to do with like external pressures. We're seeing more catastrophes with climate. We're also seeing a fairly decent amount of people retiring. So the industry is always growing, but while the workforce is decreasing. So how are you dealing with these issues? So there's a lot of innovation that can take place, but you can take there's so many different avenues to go down. It can be overwhelming, but it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Oh, I'm sorry. Was there more that you wanted to add?
Oh yeah. So something else I want to talk about with like innovation in the program is the fact that we all come from diverse areas. I was the youngest, probably by 10 years. And with innovation in this unprecedented times, no one really necessarily knows where we're going. But you're going to have to be able to communicate your ideas clearly and concisely. So despite the fact that like you may not necessarily have a whole lot of seniority, being able to convey those ideas clearly, and then also being cognizant of the generational lines, and then just all kind of tying together and being able to forge a path together does go a long way. And that's something I believe that the program has given me.
You mentioned a couple of things that are really important. Right. You mentioned the fact that, innovation can come in many different forms. And, it's not innovation just to say, oh, I need to think of something that's new, that's something that nobody else is doing. Innovation also comes in the form of process improvements. Innovation comes in the form of just, doing something, or maybe even not doing something. Right. How many of us have been in a situation where someone has said, oh, we've been doing this for 100 years, and so we're not going to touch it. Well, maybe it's time to say, hey, maybe the innovation is maybe we should stop doing it, because how much benefit is there to actually, continuing on? So I think that one of the things that we have been doing a lot of is having our students really think differently. And it's not about changing how they think about certain things, or necessarily changing their opinions, but changing it in a way where they, kind of like broaden their perspective and then, give more credence to things that they've never considered before, or, options in that way. And that's why, the other thing that Zach mentioned about, working with a cohort that's very diverse is actually part of the education. And it's not just learning from them in terms of subject matter and in terms of experience, but learning, with them because of those generational differences and differences in opinion, and learning how to deal with that. So I think that the program is multifaceted in that way. And so, Zach, thank you very much for covering it that way. I think that one of the other things that I know that Zach has leveraged is all of the resources that we have beyond our faculty and beyond our peers. And I think that, Zach really, struck up a great relationship with, one of our guest lecturers. So can you talk to that a little bit about, the value of those people outside? And, one of them is Rose Hall. She's one of our guest lecturers. And, Zach was working on a number of projects that really had nothing to do with Rose.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I did my best to forge a lot of relationships across the industry. My mom always used to tell me the worst thing they can say is no. So I'd always just ask for their time and then lend them my ears, because I have so much I don't know, and they can give me so much. And so for the instance with like Rose Hall, I did my thesis paper on cross business collaboration across the Berkeley organization. So there's, just so everyone knows, there's 54 different operating units. And so I talked about creating a recommendation engine similar to LinkedIn's. And then so after I was done presenting the project, Rose Halls goes, have you ever considered how this could be good for like reverse mentoring, like the data that you could provide everyone? And then that hadn't even come to my thought, and like I didn't even think about that. And so it's like those kind of relationships where they can they see things from a different perspective because they've had different experiences than you. And I've leveraged Sandra Bogart, who's a professor. We're currently working on something together. There's just so many opportunities that if you lever them correctly, like your ceiling's limitless.
So I don't want to take up too much time because I want to open it up for any of you who might have questions for Zach. So the last thing to wrap this up is I wanted to ask Zach, what are some of the most impactful lessons that you're taking with you from the program?
Have courage and be resilient. You gotta, if you have an idea, you have to be willing to go to bat for it, and not everyone's going to like it. People probably might hate it, but that's where the resilience comes in. And you got to be able to like get up and say, okay, why do they dislike it? Potentially you have to pivot, you have to move forward, but you got to keep going. And that, takes courage.
Yeah, it certainly does. And especially when, someone disagrees with you, right? And then, like you said, you have to stand there and you back it up. But also the flip side is having the courage to challenge someone else, right? Having the courage to say to one of your peers, I really don't agree with you, or even better, saying to one of your lecturers that you don't agree.
Right.
So, and then I guess just to round it out, the other thing that you mentioned earlier is patience, right? So one of the things that you've taken away is patience, because you're of that generation that does want everything to happen yesterday.
Right.
So, and we had students who are, my age and saying, oh, we know what's not going to happen tomorrow. So with that, I'd like to thank Zach very much for having an honest and transparent discussion with us this evening. And I think at this time, we'd like to open it to anyone who's on the call who would like to ask, Zach, any questions.
So I see, so I'm going to butcher the name. I'm so sorry. Eliandra. It's 16 months, and there's 4 semesters. And I'd say on average, 10 to 16 hours a week. If not, like, it depends on how much effort you want to put in. Like the master's degree is all about how much effort you want to get out of it. So it's all up to you.
The info session later on, I will actually show you kind of like a breakdown, but we really have, like I like to say, a microcosm of the insurance industry, and not just the insurance industry, but the insurance ecosystem represented. Because as Zach mentioned, we have had at least 4 risk managers come for the program in the past 3 years. We've only been around for 3 years, but we've had a really interesting, diverse cohort in terms of both their experience, their age, as well as their background. So, as Zach mentioned, one of his peers had never worked in the insurance industry before, but, kind of, maybe touched on it a little bit while he was working for a not-for-profit. But he called me and he said, listen, I really want to transition to the insurance industry. And after being in our program for 2 semesters, he actually landed a job at an insurance company. So to me, that means that, number one, the insurance industry is attractive to many different people. But the program is attractive to people from all walks of life, within the insurance ecosystem. So not just from the carrier side, not just from the broker side, but, also obviously from the insured side.
Everyone's going to have because everyone has different specialties. So everyone's going to find a different part of the program more difficult than others. I would say that claims was very difficult for me. I had very little expertise. Like I didn't really do much with claims at all, to be honest with you. So starting from zero and having to work with that was relatively difficult for me. And I mentioned finance before. I work with balance sheets. I work with income statements. I do a lot of financial analysis every single day. So that part was a little easy for me. But once we got into compliance and the complexity of an insurance company, that's where I really got a lot out of it. But I did find it quite difficult. And I want to get back to that question real quick, though, because those were the more structured courses that we had. But we also had a course, applied research, and then what was the summer one called again?
Emerging risks and insurance topics.
Emerging risks.
Hey, that's my class.
That is your class. That's why I asked. We had to write a white paper for that. And so it was a little open-ended. And so we were able to do whatever we wanted, which, I chose to try to create a loss instrument bond for cryptocurrencies. Back before we had the technology and transfer agents online, we used to trade stock with paper. And so whenever the paper would get destroyed or lost, we would issue a loss security bond. And so then it kind of acts in place of it. So then the company doesn't lose money if the stocks are duplicated. And so with cryptocurrencies, when Bitcoin is lost, it's lost. I didn't really know much about the blockchain. I still don't, but I know a lot more than I did. So that was an important course to me because I got to use my creativity and I also got to dig into something I didn't know much about. I don't think it's going to work, but it was worth it. It was kind of fun to try.
Zach, something you mentioned, this is Travis. Apologies if the camera's not working, but something you mentioned that I think we can all kind of agree with is there's a lot that we don't know. And something I kind of continue to remind myself of is that you don't know what you don't know. So I think being in this type of course and doing group projects will kind of give you the opportunity to broaden your horizons and your skill set, I guess, with different things. So can you kind of speak on, I know there's some projects and papers and whatnot that are done singularly, but as far as some of the things done in a group, can you speak on those a little bit?
Absolutely. So there was a class that we had to create a product in. I have to think back now. We had to do the applied research paper. We did the white paper, and then we had to do a pricing policy. The policy one, see, I work in bonds. Everything's heavily regulated. We don't really write any of our own paper. So having to deal with exclusions and definitions and the legal jargon of that course was really, really helpful to me. I'm by no means an expert in it, but I have a little bit more knowledge in it now than I did before. And so I like that what you said though, because we don't know what we don't know. And this project, this course isn't necessarily meant to make you an expert in a specific part of the field. What it is meant to do is give you an idea of what is out there. Because if you don't know what you don't know, then you don't know where to go. A lot of the projects were very relevant, and I thought they were very beneficial. I don't know if I answered your question properly.
But just joking, Teresa. No,
oh, wow.
but
don't set the bar so high. Wow.
I know. But no, it makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate that perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, as Zach mentioned, there's a lot of opportunity for everybody to really think. There's nothing in our program. I guarantee that there's nothing in our program where we just ask our students to repeat what they've heard or what they've read. Okay. Everything is about application. Everything is about finding ways of using information. And so, what I mentioned earlier about Rose, having all of the guest lecturers that we have over 50 guest lecturers in our program. And every single one of them has committed to being available to our students and to our alumni, right? This is not just, oh, okay, I was a guest lecturer in this one class and then, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, and I'm done, right? They are in it for the long haul. And that's what makes our program really different, because we're here to build community for our students. We're here to build them long-term resources, whether they're academic resources or whether they're professional resources. So, to your point of you don't know what you know, between us and as we build our community, we expect that we will be able to know someone who knows something about what you don't know. And so as a student, you always have us as a resource in order to be able to tap that knowledge and that subject matter.
CU, from what I've gathered, is a little bit more specific on the subject matter. And then this is more of like current trends within the insurance industry, and where things are headed. I think it's a little bit more nuanced than the CPCU. I think Teresa can expand on that more.
Yeah, we get asked that question very often. The CPCU is more technical, and I will not make the mistake of saying that we are any substitute for the CPCU, because we are not. Okay, so the CPCU is about teaching you more of the technical parts and the definitions and understanding the concepts, whereas we are about taking the CPCU content to the next level, which is, how do you apply it? Where can you use it? How can you enhance what you've learned in the CPCU? Because what we're hoping to do is we're hoping to train future managers. We're hoping to help people advance to that next level where they're more maybe involved in a strategic role as opposed to just a, task-based role. So, there is a difference. We do work with the CPCU. In fact, some of the content that we use is to give students the background that they need if they don't have it, using the CPCU materials, but then taking it to the next level. So if you have your CPCU, that's great. And, I don't think that anything that we do really replicates that or would be redundant.
I'm very fortunate to work for a flat organization. So the results have been very strong. I'm currently on the innovation committee for my organization. So I'm currently helping with a project in the pipeline. And I'm actively speaking with executives every day now. And so I would say that it's been very beneficial, because now that I have my foot in the door, I've created a relationship and I've showed that I'm like I'm reliable and I have ideas and I'm willing to try to execute them. And so it was just the first step in a long journey. But yeah, no, the whole technical side though to the whole industry, it's going to definitely be a long arduous journey, but I look forward to being a part of it, because I don't know very many opportunities where there's a time where everything is kind of up in the air. So it's a very exciting time to be in insurance.
Oh, what did you enjoy most about the program, Zach? Your weekly discussions with me?
My weekly discussions with Teresa Chan. That one's truthful. I think that what I liked about the program the most, we're in a people industry. I got to meet a lot of new people. I opened up my horizon. I know I know it's very cliche, but I'd like to think I have a growth mindset, like I always want to learn. And then so Columbia and this program has kind of taught me the skill sets that I need to learn. It's been a long time since I know many of my colleagues in the course were students. So we all became students of the business again. And it's always been a great ride.
Oh, I love that, students of the business, because I think that, as Zach mentioned, our industry is changing so much and so rapidly that there's always something to learn. I have a student in our current cohort. I have 2 or 3 students who have been working in excess of 25 years in the industry. And for them to believe that there's still that much to learn, for them to realize that there's so much to learn, I think is a testament to, them signing up for the program. Great. Well, thank you very much, Zach, for joining us this evening. It was a pleasure to have you. I hope to have you with us again. If anyone has any questions that they come up with later for Zach, please feel free to email me or Chrissy, and we'll pass them along to Zach, and I'm sure that he will happily answer them for you.
Absolutely. I hope to see a lot of you in the future cohort, and I need to expand my network. So I look forward to it. All right.
Great. Thank you very much, Zach.
See you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Zach.
Great. So, Chrissy, we have about 20 minutes. So I'm going to kind of buzz through our usual information session. But to everyone who's on the call, again, if you have any questions after this, we don't have time to cover everything, please feel free to reach out to us and we will happily answer your questions. So Chrissy, go ahead.
Wonderful. Okay. So we'll talk a little, can everyone see my screen? If you can't, just maybe unmute and let me know, just making sure you can see. All right. Okay. Okay, so we'll just quick agenda introductions. We'll talk about the insurance profession, the changing landscape. We'll talk about program benefits, the curriculum, faculty. We'll talk about the asynchronous online learning platform. Then we'll get into admissions and some of the requirements and pieces of the application process, tuition and financial aid, and then hopefully leave a little bit of time at the end here for some more Q&A, especially if you have questions specific to what we're about to present. So Teresa, I'll let you start.
Great. Most of you have met me already. Obviously, you just spent the last 40 minutes with me. I came into this program as director after spending 27 years in the insurance industry. And I think the most important thing that I bring to the program is the fact that in my experience, I've spent a lot of time doing a lot of different things. So I started as a regulatory attorney. I then ran AIG's new product think tank for 5 years, where all we did was come up with new products and services and work with all of the profit centers to develop and execute them and deliver them. And then I created 2 businesses, one with Native American tribes. And then I created a new product that facilitated the financing of renewable and alternative energy projects. And I ran that group for 5 years as well. And I worked as a consultant for 2 years. And then I worked with Willis Towers Watson in a new MGA incubator that they had created that was supposed to be created on electronic platforms. And then I finally came to Columbia. So the reason why innovation I think is so important is because I've spent a lot of time doing it. I've spent more than 25 years drafting policies, creating new product. And it really opened my eyes to the level of opportunity that was available in our industry. And it really made it interesting, right? So basically every 5 years I was doing something different. So I wanted to bring that experience to the program, and hopefully that's what I've built and that's what our students feel. So I'll talk briefly about the insurance profession because I know that most of you already know, but I think that the changes in the insurance profession are what creates all the opportunities for us. So number one, we all know that the average age of an insurance professional is fairly high at 45 years and at 45 years old, and that up to 50% of this workforce is going to start retiring in 10 to 15 years. However, that's an old statistic. They haven't really come up with a newer one yet, because now I think it's within 10 years that more than 50% of the workforce will be retiring. So as a result, we have a long existing industry that really needs innovators, strategists, thought leaders, and facilitators who are going to take the industry forward. And those leaders have to be in tune with their employees' goals. They have to be aligned with all of the new requirements in environmental, social, and governance standards. And those individuals have to be willing to implement change. So as a result of the change in the demographic, there are lots of learning and development challenges. Not as a result, but along with those changes, there are learning and development challenges, which include, for those of us who've been working in the industry for a while, siloed work responsibilities with limited opportunity for interdepartmental engagement. There's been, limited resources for mentorship because people are busy. And not that many people really have the time to do it. It's also a little bit harder now because many of us are working remote. There's also limited availability of structured in-house education. I think that a lot of companies have started using, digital platforms and, take a class here, click through this class, and then at the end, you'll get a certificate, and then all of us print it to prove that we went through the class. But that's not the same thing as really structured education. And then finally, for many of us, we know that there are highly selective rotational management training programs, but not everyone has the opportunity to do that. So, so our program is based around how can we provide that to the masses of employees who I believe all have something to add, and all have something of value to give to their employers. And so, I had mentioned, the change in demographic. So the human capital management priorities that we have shifted, right? We need to attract more qualified professionals. We need to really promote and diversify our employee base through all levels of the company, not just at the top, not just, with our executives. And, with so many people leaving, we need to somehow maintain industry knowledge and we need to share it. So expediting the training and the replacement of middle management and executives is also a priority within our industry. So with all of this change, obviously comes a breadth of new opportunities, right? So what we need are new solutions. We need more efficient processes and improved customer service. And all of that requires innovation. And in addition to that, that drive and that, that willingness to implement. Innovation itself thrives on curiosity and that continuous expansion of knowledge. And, with that expansion of knowledge, with that innovation comes entrepreneurship. So in order to have entrepreneurship, to support it, we need to have incubators and we need to have the support services in order to make those, entrepreneurial objectives successes. And, as Zach mentioned in his discussion, we have many new generations who demand new products and services, who demand and expect convenience, speed, as well as cost effectiveness. And therefore, technological advancement is an integral part of the future of insurance. And these are all of the things that give us opportunity. So I'd like to jump into some of the program benefits. And, as one of you mentioned, one of the most important program benefits is the breadth of the experience and interests of our cohort. So we have 27 active students right now who have experience from anywhere from 3 to 20 plus. And I had mentioned that some of the cohort in this new class have over 25 years of experience. We have students from currently 3 different countries in 6 different time zones, and they represent carriers, brokers, agents, wholesalers, insureds, entrepreneurs. In our first class, we had 3 students who own their own agencies and own them for a fairly long period of time. Our students are also very, highly educated already. Many of them have MBAs, they have other master's degrees, and many of them have the many certifications that our industry provides. On the right, you'll see some of the areas in which they have expertise. So as you can see, they come from all walks of life, which makes for a much more enriching experience for our students. So I want to point out very importantly that our program is very much industry centric and market responsive. Number one, our program was created from scratch and the cohesive curriculum, with its breadth of content was designed exclusively for this program. And we started in ground zero. We did not go to other programs within the university and, take classes and put them together and call it a master's program. We actually took, the time and the effort to create everything from scratch. So you will see as you progress from class to class that they're connected and there is overlap, and that when we go from one class to another, if there is a repeat on a subject matter, we're looking at it from a different perspective. Our program is also based around problem-based learning. So as Zach mentioned, we spend a lot of time working on, real life or actual scenarios and current events in a group environment. And so despite the fact that we're online, we actually spend a lot of time working with each other. As I mentioned, because of my background, we do have an innovation and thought leadership focus. One of the ways for us to advance as professionals and as leaders is to really be out there as thought leaders and not just as followers. So we give our students a chance to have that experience. And in fact, one group of students in our first cohort had their 13-page white paper in my class published in 2 magazines, one in an industry periodical and one in a space review magazine. So, I think that getting our students out there to be recognized by the industry is also very important. Our instruction and mentorship is by seasoned industry executives, and you'll see their qualifications online as well as in a slide later. And something that's very important to me is I want the program to be an extension of the workplace. I want our students to be able to bench test ideas or opportunities that they're maybe thinking about during the day at their desk. And I want them to be able to test them against our cohort, their peers, the faculty, as well as our program's corporate advisory network, from which we have all of our guest speakers. And then finally, one of the other benefits of the program is that it is online, it's asynchronous instruction, and that makes it very convenient for our working professionals. And we will talk about that again in a later slide. So on this page, I think it's important, after spending 27 years in the industry, I said, there's so many questions that I still can't answer because I was kind of working in, you know, in those silos in a way. So here I have 10 questions that, you know, if you spent X amount of time in the industry, you would think that you would be able to answer, but in most cases we cannot. But by the time you finish this program, you will be able to. Many of the things, everything that we do in the program is also intended to strengthen your career advancement attributes. So as Zach mentioned, expanding your professional network and resources, helping you acquire that holistic understanding of business functions and decision-making priorities from not only a domestic, but a global perspective through multiple lines of business. We don't focus necessarily on a line of business or a particular area. And we believe that everything that we're teaching has broad applicability across all lines. We want to help our students improve their communication skills and, as I mentioned, thought leadership. And we want them to routinely integrate the practice of innovation, process improvement, and strategic thinking in everything that they do. We, of course, through our activities, we reinforce ideation and creation through collaboration and inspiration. And I just realized how many TIONs I used in that one sentence. And finally, we want to encourage critical analysis and continuous improvement among peers and colleagues. And that means it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street between us as the faculty, as well as our students, because all of us are professionals in the same industry. I'd like for Chrissy now to take over and talk about the Columbia Advantage.
Sure. Thank you, Teresa. So just a few things to highlight here regarding the Columbia Advantage. So of course, there's brand recognition. So a degree from Columbia is recognized globally for academic excellence. We have a very vibrant alumni and student association. We have a lot of active members in our alumni network across a variety of student groups at the School of Professional Studies. So you're definitely able to connect with many alumni across schools, degrees, graduation years, interests, and more. So, and then of course, academics, we have seasoned faculty and practitioners in the industry. So it is also the only insurance management program at the Ivy League level, and it's a world-renowned education that's recognized internationally. So a few advantages of Columbia University, as I'm sure you know. So here are some resources that I won't go through all of them in too much detail, but just in the interest of time. But when you are a student at Columbia, you have access to tremendous resources, and the School of Professional Studies really is a hub for people who are working professionals. So like I mentioned, there's alumni relations. We have a career design lab, which is, as an enrolled student, you have automatic access to. They can help you explore career options, pivoting your career. They kind of connect you to the real world, which is a big part of the School of Professional Studies. You have access to the Columbia University libraries. And of course, being an asynchronous course, this is online. So there is an extensive collection of digital resources available to you. We have our help desk, disability services. We have the Engage Hub, which helps you to build your network, again, within your program and across all of our programs. We have, again, a really vibrant student life, student government, student organizations. All of these we recommend that you participate in. And they are, you know, it's hard to think of all of that as an asynchronous student, but you have just as much access as someone who would be on campus. And then student services in terms of advising, registration, policies, procedures, all of that is available to you along the way as well.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Sure.
So now let's talk about asynchronous online learning. So what is asynchronous learning? Asynchronous courses do not require students to attend live classes, right? Whether they're online or in person. Our students have the flexibility to watch pre-recorded lectures and presentations, stream video content, and access all of the information that they need in order to succeed within our program. And they do this, through a learning management system. So you as a student will be able to participate in everything, in all of our activities at any time, day or night. Now, students do have to complete coursework. They can complete it from anywhere, but they do have to adhere to regular assignment and discussion deadlines, because we want to make sure that the students all progress from week to week. And we never want our students to feel as though they're working on an island. Of course, you could be working from an island, but not necessarily on an island. There could be, so during the whole process, there could be exchanges between the lecturers and the students across discussion boards or social media platforms, but obviously everything happens online. But as we mentioned earlier, this modality allows for that maximum flexibility and convenience. So I think that, the thing to keep in mind is that it's just the lectures that are pre-recorded, but a lot of the engagement is actually done, online, whether it's live synchronously or, just, on your own time. So the other synchronous opportunities in our asynchronous program include weekly virtual office hours with lecturers, classroom Q&A discussions. I host coffee chats once a month with each cohort. We come in and we talk about everything under the sun. It doesn't have to be academic, but it of course could be. And as I mentioned earlier, our program is based in problem-based learning projects as well as discussion groups. And we often have guest speakers and panel discussions. But none of those are required, because in an asynchronous program, we cannot require students to attend any events at a specific time. So like this, we record these, and if you can't appear or you can't participate in person or live, we would make it available in video. And then obviously throughout the school, we have career and industry events, as well as those student-led activities that Chrissy mentioned. So the curriculum, as I mentioned, is very unique in that, we created it from scratch. It's 10 classes, 10 courses that are completed in 30 credits. The courses are completed in 4 consecutive semesters. So all of our students would start in September of one year and then continue on spring, summer, and fall in those 4 semesters, and it's part-time study. There are 2 required in-person residencies for those of you who are domestic in the United States, and those residencies take place on campus. During those residencies, the first one is more like an orientation, and we'll spend 3 days getting to know each other, getting to know the faculty, and then also learning how to use the resources that you will have access to once you become an online student. In the second residency, you come back at the end of the 4 semesters to present your applied research project, as well as spend more time, with your cohort, with your peers, as well as the faculty. So here we show the way that the courses are laid out. It is a part-time program, so at any one time, you are not studying more than 2 subjects at a time. So how do we accomplish this? In the first 2 semesters, we have 3 courses in each semester. However, as you can see, one of them is 14 weeks, and then the other 2 are 7. So at any one time, you are studying no more than 2 subjects at a time. And then in the last 2 semesters, we lightened out the load a little bit, and it's 2 classes per semester. I mentioned, that our cohort is very diverse, but equally diverse is our faculty. On the left-hand side, you will see their background, things that past subjects that they studied in school, what they had done in the past before they entered the insurance world. And then on the right, you'll see all of the positions that they've held and the different roles that they've had, within the industry. So as I mentioned earlier, the biographies for each of the lecturers is available there. And I also want to mention that the email addresses for the lecturers are available to you as well. If you would like to reach out to the lecturers and make an appointment to talk to them about their courses or about the program, please feel free to do that. Chrissy, can you talk about the application process?
Okay, wonderful. So we can first take a look at the application deadlines for fall 2023. So we only have a fall intake for this program. And that priority deadline for that application period for fall is February 15th, and the final deadline is June 15th. So students who have international transcripts or documentation are encouraged to apply by March 15th. So we have a suggested application deadline for international students as well. So applications are reviewed on a rolling basis. So we encourage you to submit your application before the deadline. And again, with all of this said, at the end of this presentation, I will share with you my contact information. So I know we're going to breeze through this. So if you have questions, I certainly am available because it is a lot in terms of the requirements to address right now. So it is an online application. And all of these details are on the insurance management website as well. We do require a $95 application fee. We require transcripts from all post-secondary institutions that you've attended. And if you did attend an institution abroad, we do require that you submit your transcripts through the World Evaluation Services, which is also called WES, and that is for a course-by-course evaluation. So it's sort of like the international official transcript. And specific instructions for this are on the website, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have that particular situation. We require 2 letters of recommendation for this program, an updated resume or CV. There is a statement of academic purpose, a supplemental essay, and a video essay. So you can see on the slide the content required for the statement of academic purpose and for the supplemental essay. The video essay is a pretty unique part of our application process. After you submit your application, when you log back into the application portal, which has a checklist available to you, you'll receive a list of instructions to complete a video essay. So can feel a little daunting, but it is actually not, it's not something to overly worry about. It is a way for us to see you respond to sort of a human question, articulate and think on your feet. So you have essentially, you're provided the question, you have essentially 60 seconds to prepare and 60 seconds to record, and then you submit that. So that pops up after you submit your application, but is a part of the required materials. There may be an admissions interview required, and if one is required, the admissions team does reach out and we can set that up on Zoom. And then lastly, students whose first or native language is not English do need to provide proof of English proficiency through either the TOEFL exam or the IELTS, and details about that are also on the website, and I'm happy to answer any questions about that as well. The minimum score for TOEFL is 100 and a 7 on the IELTS. And we do accept the at-home versions of these tests. The only exception to this is if you completed your undergraduate degree at a conferring institution where the language of instruction was English, and that you completed your entire undergraduate degree there. So something really important to note, and can feel a little bit confusing because it's asynchronous, this program, but we do have these in-person residencies, but all accepted students into the program do need to meet the immunization requirements of Columbia University in order to attend those residencies and enroll in classes. So that's something just important to note. And as we know, over the years, that's been somewhat ever-changing. So you can check out Columbia's website for that to receive the most kind of up-to-date information if you have questions about that. So we can talk a little bit about tuition and financial aid. So the tuition cost is $1,784 per credit, and it is a total, the total credits for the program is 30. We also refer to credits as points, so don't be confused if you see it mentioned that way. Students can apply and qualify for federal financial aid. There are insurance industry scholarships. The Spencer Educational Foundation Scholarship has an application portal that is open. And I believe that timeline, the deadline for that is January 31st, but Teresa, you can speak to that maybe a little bit more. We have had students in the program apply and receive scholarships from the Spencer Educational Foundation. We do have School of Professional Studies or SPS Merit Fellowships, which if when you apply, if you're accepted to the program, you are automatically applied for those merit-based fellowships as well. And then we always ask that you take a look at any corporate tuition reimbursement. And again, any research that you can do for external funding opportunities is also recommended as well. And just a little note, the rate can increase. It typically does over the course of a year. So always check back on the website for that per credit cost as well. So this email here is the insurance management at sps.columbia.edu is the email alias for our program inbox, and I am the individual who checks that inbox. So you can feel free to write to me directly if you have any questions about the application process. I also, as soon as we're done here, will put in my appointment calendar. If you feel like you just want to have a conversation via Zoom, I'm on campus once or twice a week. And if you're in the area, you want to pop in, please feel free to make an appointment with me, and I'm happy to go over the application process or any questions that you may have. And then Teresa has also shared her email contact here, and we always recommend that you connect with us on LinkedIn as well. You can find out a lot of information about what current students are doing, what's happening with the program, and a lot about the School of Professional Studies as well. So please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. Teresa, did you want to add anything?
Yes. Could you go back to the Spencer scholarships slide,
Sure.
please? Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we actually have students who've applied for that scholarship before they were even admitted to our program. Now, granted, the deadline is in about a week or so. But if you are seriously thinking about applying to the program, you can always see whether or not you also win a scholarship. Obviously, they won't grant it if you're not matriculated in the program. But I just wanted to mention that to you. The Spencer Educational Foundation has been very supportive of our students. And I think every year that we've had this program, they've awarded 3 of our students with scholarships. And each of the scholarships has been $10,000. We actually have a student who won the scholarship twice. So, it's very, very supportive of our program. The other thing that I also wanted to mention is, we newly, the Chinese American Insurance Association has also made their scholarship available to students of Chinese descent. So for those of you who are, you have that scholarship available as well. But all of these scholarships are also listed on the website. So feel free to go onto the page to look and to apply for any of them. So at this time, I know that we've run out over time. I am perfectly fine staying on and talking to you for another hour if you'd like, but please feel free to ask us any questions that you might have right now. And obviously, if you can't stay, email us and we will answer your questions, via email. So let's open up the floor to questions.
So Brandy has a question, and I don't know, Teresa, if it's fully covered in your response, but how do you apply for the scholarship before you're being approved? And I think you mentioned that current students in the program can apply while enrolled.
Mm-hmm. Current students can apply, and I think you're talking about the Spencer Scholarship. You can apply for the scholarship expressing interest in the program. And for whatever reason, like I said, Spencer has actually awarded scholarships to, prospective students, not necessarily matriculated students. The priority deadline is more about being able to, get responses because it's rolling admissions. It's about being able to get responses to individuals ASAP so that they can start applying for scholarships and making plans, right? As working professionals, you're not just sitting there waiting to see what's going to happen, over the year. You need to kind of settle what you have to do in order to successfully complete the program. So, so that's one thing. I wouldn't discourage you from applying because we actually have a deadline like through June 15th. So, if you need to, you can wait until then, but that doesn't necessarily impact your application. I think that's what you're asking. Right?
It does benefit the applicant to apply earlier in terms of their own planning. But if you have any questions about that, please feel free. But again, I always recommend to prospects, you don't want to do anything in haste either. So don't let that priority deadline, inhibit your timing and your ability to present a really strong application. Okay, we have a question here. How relevant are the GRE GMAT? So I can speak a little bit to that. If you have competitive scores and you want to submit them, that's great, but they are not required for this application for this program. Okay, so this is how relevant. So, okay, we've answered a piece of this for the GRE GMAT. Are there more chances of getting accepted if submitted? Also, what has been the acceptance rate of this program? Teresa, do you want to touch on that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that again? I heard acceptance rate.
Are there more chances of getting accepted if we submit the GRE? And also, what has been the acceptance rate of the program?
Yeah, I'm not permitted to talk about rates of acceptance. And I know that it's different from undergraduate, because in undergraduate, they talk about acceptance rates all the time. In terms of, the GRE, what we will want to make sure is that our students can successfully get through the program. And, sometimes taking standardized exams and having those scores is helpful. But I will tell you honestly that the most important thing to me is what you've done in your career, and specifically what you want to get out of our program, because we want to make sure our students are a fit for the program as well, that they are willing to learn from each other, learn from us, as well as contribute to each other's learning. So very important to me is your background, the path that you're taking, the future that you see for yourself, and how we can be of value to those aspirations. So, the GRE and the GMATs and the standardized exams are reflective of how well you're going to be doing academically. But what I and the committee who reviews your applications want to know is how well you're going to fit into our community, and how you might be able to contribute to it as well.
And also take note that we do have another information session with a current student in February. So if you want to register, if you can't come, you'll receive the recording just like this session, but please always take a look on our website for upcoming events and things going on across the School of Professional Studies. Actually, we have application tips webinars twice a month, and there's one coming up on February 1st and February 8th. So those are great to attend as well, especially if you're kind of in the midst of working on an application. But thank you everyone so much for coming. We appreciate that you're here. Recording of this session in the next couple of days. Thank you.
We look forward to talking to you.